on GameSpot TV. We delve into the mind of Sims designer Will Wright. His creation, The Sims, turns game players into omnipotent beings. We talk to the man about his latest social experiment. And get your leathers out. We skid around the track in our preview of Sightbite 64. And if those boos are stealing all your coins, we have a way to get them back. It's a strategy guide for Mario Party 2. Stick around. It's game time. Hello and welcome to another edition of GameSpot TV. I'm Adam Sessler. Now, since its release, The Sims from Maxis has sold over 215,000 copies. That's about $8.6 million. We had the opportunity to speak to Will Wright about the making of this game and his own feelings on this very unique title. Released in 1989, SimCity is considered one of the most popular games ever. In fact, the Sim series of games from Maxis have sold over 7 million units, making it one of the most successful series worldwide. And now Maxis and game designer Will Wright have brought us The Sims, which is changing the way that we look at our lives. Now, with SimCity and The Sims, you've helped really pioneer the freeform type of game. I think many people would call a Will Wright game. Would you agree with that, or how would you define a Will Wright game?
Well, I think of the type of games that we do in the Sim series is like toys, like software toys. So, there's usually a game there, but at the same time, we don't give you overly structured goals. And so one of the most interesting things is when a player sits down, the first thing they do is they decide, what am I going to do today with this? Am I going to build a giant city? Or am I going to build a really dysfunctional family in The Sims? And so letting the player choose their goals and then pursue them, I think, gives the game so much more replayability and also allows the player to be so much more creative with what they do in the game. This is basically a game about real life. You can create a character, create a family, build them a house, and then you run their lives. The way you guide the characters is you select one, and then any object you click on will show you what the person can do with that object.
Game development is a balancing act, and it can be hard to decide what to put in and what to take out, especially in a game not driven by story like The Sims. Now, in The Sims, with it being open-ended, you're supposedly able to do just about anything, but obviously you can't because it's a game. Where did you draw the line between what you really wanted to do and what you were going to put into the game?
Well, there were two basic lines or boxes that we had to live within. One was kind of technical. How believable could this behavior be? How far could we take them? So there are certain kind of lines we drew in the sand that we decided we were going to do a domestic environment very well rather than do the entire environment, like the work and school, kind of badly. This game brought up a lot of interesting kind of ethical, moral issues. We're going to go into issues of domestic violence, child abuse. Certain ones we just kind of didn't want to touch, like child abuse. Other ones like same-sex partnerships, we decided, we would allow in the game if the player wanted to push it in that direction. We designed the architecture of it to be very open-ended, so we can expand the game by downloading new objects. So whenever we came to a situation like that where we just don't have time to do this, we tried to design the architecture of the game so that we could download it later into the game. We can expand it after it's shipped. So most of the stuff that we wanted to do, I think we eventually will have, is downloadable.
With its emphasis on material possessions, there's little question that The Sims is trying to poke a little fun at our contemporary lives. Do you see The Sims as actually being a commentary upon society?
Yeah, in some sense, actually, the longer you play the game, you start realizing that it's not tuned the way you think it is. Because in the initial gameplay, it's about buying stuff. I want a better TV, I want a better kitchen, and it'll make my life better. But as you start playing the game for much longer with that same family, every object has a built-in failure. So as you start buying more and more of these things and pulling your house up, it's like all these potential time bombs. And so at some point, if you actually play the game in a very materialistic direction, you start realizing that all these things you bought are actually sucking up the time that they were supposed to save you.
would you even consider yourself with SimCity and The Sims and all the other games? I mean, would you see yourself slowly coming to the position of almost being a social commentator with these games that you put out?
Well, I'd rather be the spark. I'd rather just have this thing out there, this title that sparks other people having discussions, and they're the ones that really make the social commentary. A lot of times when we deal with moral issues in our games or ethical issues, we try to balance it as neutral as possible so that half the people think that we went too far left, the other half think we went too far right, and then they have a big argument about it. And what's really valuable is that big argument.
Now, if you're playing the game or you're just interested, it's a must to go see The Sims website. It's at www.thesims.com. There you can find out about all the available downloads, such as the superhero skins, or you can also see the family albums, such as the Pink Family and the very troubled Sadistic Family. But now, it's time for the game news. March 4th marked the release of the PlayStation 2 in Japan. Thousands of people lined the streets when stores opened as much as 2 hours earlier than usual. Sony's website was flooded with orders. 980,000 PlayStation 2 units were sold in 2 days, though Sony had projected 1 million in sales. They were still short on supplies due to a lack of memory cards for the system, leaving some customers empty-handed.
The Game Developers Conference was held in San Jose, California this week. The 14th annual gathering of coders, game designers, marketers, and stars of the gaming world was attended by around 10,000 people. Perhaps the biggest event of this year's conference was a keynote speech by none other than Bill Gates. Gates revealed the specifics of Microsoft's new gaming console, the Xbox. Though not scheduled for release until the fall of 2001, the processing and graphics capabilities of the new system are double that of the PlayStation 2 and promise to bring gaming to a new, hyper-realistic level.
If you want more about the Game Developers Conference, make sure you tune in next week and see our extended coverage. You want more on The Sims? Then come to the GameSpot TV website, and there you can see our extended interview with Will Wright and find out about the hottest downloads for your digital family. Coming up on GameSpot TV, there's sword and sorcery in Westwood's action game, Nox. We help Jack get back home. Welcome back. Now, many space combat games out there provide you with ample action. But our next title, X Beyond the Frontier, is not like that at all. But what it is a very compelling game. Developed by German software house EgoSoft, X Beyond the Frontier puts you in control of Earth's first light-speed-capable spacecraft, the X prototype. But something goes wrong during the first test flight, and you suddenly find yourself transported to a distant alien galaxy. Unarmed and unprotected, you encounter the Talati, an alien race fixated on trade and profit. They outfit your ship and leave you with a sizable debt that they expect you to pay back soon. Exploring is the name of the game, and if you don't get frustrated by X's snail's pace in the first 10 to 20 minutes, chances are you'll love the experience of flying from system to system. 6 different alien races occupy the game's 50-plus systems, each with its own sphere of influence, an array of commodities, and space station designs. Some of the 3D spacecraft and installation models are well detailed and nicely animated whenever appropriate. However, with only a few exceptions, the spacecraft models are mostly simplistic low polygon shapes. Considering the game's overall visual beauty, thanks to the gorgeous colored lighting effects and the highly detailed rotating planets, some of the less spectacular ships really stand out because of their blandness. Overall, if you miss the days of Elite and Privateer, then chances are you'll love X Beyond the Frontier. X is not for everyone, but it will almost certainly become a classic for fans of more slowly paced, economics-intensive space simulations. Michael Ryan of GameSpot.com gives X Beyond the Frontier a rating of 8.1 out of 10. It's nice to see that with all the technology and design put into X Beyond the Frontier, that it's a game that's something deeper than just blowing things up. Now, depth is not the strength of our next game, and it probably will look a wee bit familiar to you as well. But that doesn't mean it isn't a lot of fun. Notch's isometric perspective and action role-playing hybrid gameplay make it very reminiscent of Diablo, but this is a different game. Nox provides a far more action-oriented experience. Character movement is quick, and combat is very fast-paced. There are no ethical codes, and you can't attack non-enemies, so if the game lets you destroy, slaughter, or steal, you can rest assured it's the right thing to do. The single-player game offers 3 character classes, each with their own distinct campaign. There are role-playing elements like acquiring experience points, but the gameplay is focused on action. The linear level-based action doesn't allow you to personalize your experience except through your choice of attire and armaments. There are also no difficulty settings, so you must be adept at coping with occasionally frantic action to complete the campaign. Fortunately, Nox features a remarkably intuitive and effective interface that uses well-placed hotkeys to let you quickly change weapons or access available spells and abilities. There's never been a more efficient interface in such a game. One of the most distinctive features of the game is the True Sight line of sight system that blacks out areas of the gaming world behind obstacles that your character couldn't see beyond. The effect isn't revolutionary, but it gives the game its own distinct look. The artificial intelligence in the game is generally excellent. The only notable flaw is that enemies at extreme visibility ranges won't see you until attacked. The game also has a highly detailed look and doesn't utilize 3D acceleration. Nox could have been a game that had a few hastily conceived ideas that devolved into a hastily developed, derivative, and uninteresting clone. But it's clear that the developers have created a unique and polished game. Dashlock from GameSpot.com gives it an 8.1 out of 10.
You should also note that Nox's multiplayer is a lot of fun. It's almost like playing Quake from a top-down perspective. Now, why is it that it seems that when you're waiting for a game feverishly to come out, something very similar arrives just prior to it? And here we are, waiting for Code Veronica, and Carrier has hit the shelves. But the question is it going to tide us over?
In Carrier, you play one of 2 government agents who have been sent to investigate an aircraft carrier that's lost communication with the mainland. As in most cases, the reason isn't a good one, and soon you have to contend with an ancient organism that's taken control of the ship and turned the crew into kill-crazy mutants. It would seem that for every positive aspect of the game, there's always 1 or 2 drawbacks. Many graphical elements are impressive, like enemies dissolving into a puddle. At the same time, water just doesn't look like water, and explosions look like fizzles. The rendered backgrounds look sharp, but if they're populated with growths or objects, the frame rate slows down to a healthy crawl. But the control is good, though. You don't have to hit a button to climb stairs, and using the analog pad to move has you run as a default. On the whole, it's a lot like Resident Evil, except auto-targeting has been replaced with a targeting system that works well, except with ankle biters. One of the nicest additions is a rudimentary first-person mode after you gain special goggles. This lets you see beyond the normally visible screen and catch creatures just out of sight. The game takes longer than most to complete, but it's primarily due to the fact that there's a lot of ground to cover as you seek out keys for doors that are never close to one another. While Carrier isn't a terrible game, the frame rate problems and other issues do eventually add up. Joe Fielder from VideoGames.com gives it a 6.3 out of 10. Coming up on GameSpot TV, we strap on our helmets and hit the dirt track in our preview of Excitebike 64. Look how far it's come since the original. And brush up on your Soldier of Fortune tips. We have a game for the PlayStation that's casting you as a mercenary.
Welcome back. Now, while there have been numerous PlayStation titles already released this year, there hasn't been that real standout yet. This next game, though, could change all that. It's Fear Effect.
Fear Effect from IDOS places the player in the middle of a Blade Runner-esque world where you play one of 3 mercenaries. Your mission is to retrieve a powerful businessman's daughter from imminent demise. Of course, this requires ample opportunities for combat. The somewhat standard story actually plays out quite well. The controls are much like that of a Resident Evil game, though it allows you to fire while running, as well as hit 2 targets at once with a gun in each hand. Your health meter is not charged by obtaining health, but by the degree to which you perform an adrenaline-inducing feat, such as solving puzzles or defeating tons of enemies. While these life-giving events are not always apparent, it adds to the anxiety factor and therefore keeps the player involved. Like Resident Evil, Fear Effect utilizes pre-rendered backgrounds, but what sets it apart is looped video effects that add to the frenetic tone of the environment. The camera angles sometimes make judging distance a problem, but overall the graphics work extremely well. The game's pace flows nicely, but difficult puzzles placed too far from save points can mean repeating mundane gameplay until you beat it. The game doesn't hold much replay value, but the game spans 4 discs and is fulfilling enough to keep you interested and satisfied in the end. Overall, Fear Effect is a very entertaining game for the mature gamer. Joe Fielder of VideoGames.com gives it an 8.5 out of 10.
The story in Fear Effect is involved enough that it's actually quite possible to play the whole thing through in one sitting. Now, this next game is the sequel to a game that probably wouldn't last 10 minutes inside my PlayStation. But the sequel, it may have a few days' life in it. This is a preview of Nightmare Creatures 2.
While some of you may remember the original Nightmare Creatures for the PlayStation to be a less than perfect game, the creators have returned to give us Nightmare Creatures 2. The sequel begins a century after the first, where you can play the familiar Herbert Wallace and Rachel Donnerty. Many of the problems from the first title have been changed. Your character can swim now, and the adrenaline meter has been done away with. But most of the improvements stem largely from the fact that the game moves at such a great pace and includes many new fighting moves and techniques. The game's environments are much larger than the original, and with 30 sectors on 8 worlds, the game will surely keep the player interested. One notable feature is that the game data is continuously streamed from the disc, eliminating the need for Resident Evil-style load screens from room to room. The high level of detail is appended by the dynamic lighting effects, giving the environments a realistic feel. Look for Nightmare Creatures 2 in March.
The game does look like an improvement, but consider what's an improvement over. Now, with improvements from previous titles on the mind, think of Excitebike for the NES, with its little biker man and going over jumps and trying to avoid some mud. And now look at this.
We all remember the thrill of Excitebike. Now Nintendo has updated the NES title to give us Excitebike 64. The game controls a lot like the original. There is the throttle and the turbo throttle. But you can't let your engine get too hot, and you must tilt your motorcycle to the angle of the terrain when landing a jump. But as you can see, the game looks quite different from the 8-bit version. The graphics are amazing, and even in high-res mode, there is very little slowdown. There are 6 modes of play, including Season Mode, Special Tracks, Multiplayer, Time Trial, and of course, the ultimate feature from the original, the Custom Track Mode. So far, the game looks great, and has achieved the often difficult transition from 2D to 3D with flying colors. Watch for it in May.
Now, if you want to see that preview for Excitebike 64 again, come on down to the GameSpot TV website and check it out in streaming video.
Coming up on GameSpot TV, we're having a party with our strategy guide for Mario Party 2. Once you've mastered our tips, you'll be a superstar.
Welcome back. The New World Computing's Might and Magic series has been around for a long time, and its latest entry, Crusaders of Might and Magic, could possibly have the campiest intro of the year.
The scar is him. It's back to the grave for you.
The master wants this one.
Now, good sportsmanship's a fine thing to see in most players, but we all know it sometimes gets in the way when the competition really starts to heat up. So check out these strategies from Mario Party 2 and set your eyes on a star.
Mario Party 2 is a game with so many different kinds of mini-games that it's nearly impossible to have a strategy for each. Thus, we must concentrate on the bigger picture. So bow down to my slick style of systematic subversion. Lesson 1. Learn the adventure boards and learn the mini-games. Spend some time playing when your friends aren't looking. Gain the upper hand by knowing ahead of time how to avoid Bowser and match the pictures. This may seem sneaky, but think of it as a warm-up. You warm up before soccer, right? Lesson 2. Know when to spend your coins on items. Buying items works to your advantage in two ways. 1. They can help you get an edge by allowing you to steal other players' coins. And 2. By spending your coins, you keep your foe from stealing them. But it's a double-edged sword, so be careful and purchase wisely. Once you have a comfortable lead, buy a mushroom to get to the end of the board quickly. The shrooms allow you to double or triple your rolls. And since we all know that getting stars is the real way to succeed, try getting the magic lamp. There are other items. Learn what each does and use them wisely. Okay, so now you practice the minigames and know what each item does. The next lesson is more about the psychological side of Mario Party 2. Okay, this won't work playing against the computer, but it will absolutely work against your friends. Having a large lead is mentally debilitating to your real-life opponents. If you have a huge lead, do what you can to keep it. Don't feel like you can't continue to steal those with less coinage. Be ruthless. If you find yourself down a few coins, gamble. Take chances that could even put you in greater debt. Why? You have nothing to lose. Also, steal from the rich and keep it. There's nothing more difficult for the person in the lead to have to come to terms with than the fourth-place player to come back from a huge deficit. Finally, don't be afraid to talk smack to the other players. By taunting them while they play minigames, you can distract them from the very task that keeps them in the lead. Specific comments about the player's mother generally work, though in most cases, simply screaming and yelling can be enough for them to lose concentration. Remember, subverting the dominant Mario paradigm seems tough, but with a little practice and some well-timed disses, you can guarantee a win. Oh, and one other thing. When rolling, wait about 4 seconds, then stop the die. It will nearly always get you a 10.
If you'd like to review our very wholesome strategies for Mario Party 2, come on over to the GameSpot TV website and check them out again in streaming video. And while you're there, you may also like to see our Quake 3 and Crazy Taxi strategies as well. And if you have your own game strategies you'd like to share, make sure you join us Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern for our chat. So until next time, bye-bye.